If you have to put someone on a pedestal, put teachers. They are society's heroes. The duties of a teacher are neither few nor small, but they elevate the mind and give energy to the character. The best teachers are those who show you where to look, but don't tell you what to see. Better than 1,000 days of diligent study is one day with a great teacher. Your heart is slightly bigger than the average human heart, but that's because you're a teacher. Teachers can change lives with just the right mix of chalk and challenges. Teaching is the greatest act of optimism. One child, one teacher, one book, and one pen can change the world. Students, don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It is not what is poured into a student that counts, but what is planted. Teachers have 3 loves: love of learning, love of learners, and the love of bringing the first 2 loves together. The art of teaching is the art of assisting discovery. Education doesn't just make us smarter, it makes us whole. Teaching kids to count is fine, but teaching them what counts is best. I am indebted to my father for living, but to my teacher for living well. A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops. I like a teacher who gives you something to take home to think about besides homework. I have learned silence from the talkative, toleration from the intolerant, and kindness from the unkind. Yet, strange, I am ungrateful to those teachers. A good teacher can inspire hope, ignite the imagination, and instill a love of learning. A teacher who is attempting to teach without inspiring the pupil with a desire to learn is hammering on cold iron. Good teachers know how to bring out the best in students. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Change is the end result of all true learning. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. The roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet. The more that you read, you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever. The learning process continues until the day you die. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.
Good evening, everybody. Could you please confirm if I'm audible?
Yeah, we can hear you, CJ.
All right. Thank you, doctors. Good evening once again. Thank you all for registering and attending this national level online faculty development program on outcome-based education and application of generative AI in teaching and research, jointly organized by the Internal Quality Assurance Cell IQAC of University of Engineering and Management, Jaipur, Rajasthan, and the Internal Quality Assurance Cell IQAC of Nirmala College, Mahatipura, Autonomous Kerala, in association with IPSR Solutions Limited. Today, we would like to welcome the resource person, Dr. Thomas Verghese, who is the Chair, Finance Program, J.R. Shaw School of Business, Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, Canada, and we would like to welcome all the FTP participants of today. Now, about this FTP, this is a one-week FTP program with live timings from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. This is actually our 3rd day of the FTP. Now, fee for the LMS access and processing of certificate for this FTP is ₹400. All the participants who are paid the processing fee will receive the LMS access, the video recording for all the days, and the provision to download your FTP completion certificate. The procedure for receiving the certificate will be informed to you towards the end of the FTP. If any of you are yet to make the payment and would like to do so, can make the payment of ₹400 to the account details I've already put in the chat. If you are unable to attend any of the live sessions, they will be available in the LMS. Now, we have sent LMS access details through email to Those who have shared the payment proof in WhatsApp till yesterday. Those who have shared the payment proof in WhatsApp today will receive the LMS access details later in the day or by tomorrow. If any of you have any problem attending the WebEx online session, you can also join in through the YouTube live session link, which I've already put in the chat. Now, my name is 𝐬𝐧𝐥𝐢𝐧𝐞. I'm working as Global Relations Manager for IPSA Solutions Limited, and I will be the event moderator. Now, coming on to today's session, today's FDP technical session will be OBE, Canadian Experience. Now, this is going to be delivered by Dr. Thomas Verghese, who's the Chair, Finance Program, 𝐺𝐸 School of Business, Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, Canada. Now, Dr. Thomas Verghese started his career as a research officer at a small institution in Maharashtra, focusing on social surveys. Later, he became the assistant director, research there. His passion for teaching led him to the School of Applicable Mathematics at MG University, where he worked with Professor Dr. Mendes. He then taught in Brunei before moving to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, where he joined the Department of Mathematical and Statistical Sciences at the University of Alberta. Currently, he chairs the finance program at the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology and also serves as an educator and subject matter expert at Athabasca University in Canada. Thomas has authored numerous papers in statistics and education and has presented at various national and international conferences. He also reviews several international journals. In addition to his academic pursuits, Thomas is passionate about community service, volunteering in his community and church. He is an active member of the Lions Club, holding several positions, including his newest role as Vice District Governor-elect of District C1 in Canada for the year 2024-25. He has won multiple awards in dynamism and is a certified Lions instructor, showcasing his dedication and expertise within the organization. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sijin, for that kind introduction. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm just going to share my slide. Okay, can you see the slide?
Not yet.
How is it now?
Yeah, it's
okay.
Yeah,
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you once again, Sijin, for that kind introduction. And I'm super excited to be with you this evening and share some of my experiences with outcomes-based education. I mentioned, and I have titled this as Outcome-Based Education, a Canadian Experience, because I want to share my experience with outcomes-based education in the institution that I teach. As this institution is in Canada, I just titled it as Outcome-Based Education, a Canadian Experience. First of all, I want to truly congratulate the senior management of both institutions, University of Engineering and Management, Jaipur, and also Muatuvira, Nirmala College Autonomous, the senior leadership for their vision and their dedication to organize this highly essential, need of the hour kind of topic. And I want to acknowledge Professor Dr. 𝐿𝐵𝐴𝐺𝐸 Chatterjee, sir, the Vice Chancellor of University of Engineering and Management, Jaipur, Reverend Dr. Pius Malekandathilachan, and also Reverend Dr. Justin Kuriakosachan, and all the other senior leadership management of both institutions for partnering with IPSR and organizing such a wonderful FDP. So for the last 2 days through Sunil Job Sir, you have a great understanding of outcomes-based education. Moreover, outcome-based education is not new to the higher education circles in India because it had been well spoken and it had been around India since 2014. So outcome-based education is no more just a buzzword. It is as a potential. It has the potential to revolutionize the way we teach, how we teach, what we teach, and of course how we assess. In the inaugural address, Professor Chatterjee sir, the Vice Chancellor, did mention about assessment. Hopefully you remember that. So briefly, I would like to, because he mentioned that, I would like to touch the assessment part as well. So let's dive into my presentation. So I have prepared some slides, so I will walk you through those slides. One other thing I want to mention is, even though I really don't like it, I have to turn off my video. The reason, because of the bandwidth. So once I share and then talk and the video is on, it comes sometimes, there is a lag. So pardon me, I'm going to turn my camera off as we go through these slides. Hopefully that is okay with all of you. So the agenda for today, I have set like this. I will give you a brief introduction of what outcome-based education is. Now, outcome-based education is nothing but an educational reform. And as you go through the history, you will see how it happened or what are the driving forces behind it. So this is an educational reform or educational framework that focuses on achieving specific outcomes in terms of student learning and performance. So student learning and performance, that is why the Vice Chancellor, sir, mentioned about the assessment. So how they learn and how they perform. So it is a framework. So outcome-based education is a framework that focuses on these aspects of education. Now, I have prepared my presentation along these lines. I'll give you a brief introduction of it, and then a brief history, then a quick overview of what outcome-based education is. That is going to be nothing other than a recap of what Sunil Job Sir mentioned last 2 days. And then I will talk about my experience with outcome-based education in our institutions, what we did, how we did, and how is it going. And then I will talk about the assessment piece a little bit. And then after summary, we'll have some time for question and answer. So this is an exciting journey. Outcome-based education is an exciting journey. It is a very exciting journey in the paradigm shift that is happening in higher education scenario. If you look at the image of this agenda, you can see clarity of focus. We will talk about it and designing down high expectation and expanded opportunity. So this image that is provided on this slide presents the foundational principle of the outcome-based education. Now, what is clarity of focus? Now, we may come back to this again, but I really want all of us to have an excellent understanding on what this outcome-based education, I said this framework, educational framework, right? And we also need to understand the foundational principles of it. So clarity of focus. Whether you are a teacher, whether you are a student, or the educational technologists who support us, clarity on what is expected from students in each program, subject, chapter, module, is very important, as it creates the right expectations and provides the right direction to the teaching and learning process. So clarity of focus, what we are going to teach, how we are going to teach, what students are going to learn is extremely important when it comes to outcome-based education. So every lesson, every module, every chapter, every unit, what they are expected, what students are expected to learn is so very important. That is why clarity of focus is on the top. So to have that clarity of focus, what the outcomes, what they are expected to learn must be defined earlier. And students and teachers can act and strategize well to achieve the end goals or outcomes. Now, I mentioned about end goals. You will see that later on we will address that. So the second point here is designing down. So what is designing down means? You design down, but you deliver up. Now, when formulating the curriculum, educators start with the outcomes and work backwards. That is why it is called a design down and deliver up. In other words, every activity that you plan must have the end goal in your mind. When planning instructions, teachers teach what students need to learn to demonstrate the outcome. It's not, don't forget, it is not just memorizing stuff. It is about demonstrating the outcomes. So to begin with end in mind means to start with a clear understanding of your destination. It means to know where you are going so that you have a better understand where you are now, and the steps that you take are always in the right direction. So many of you probably know Stephen Covey, who talked about the 7 habits of highly effective people. It's a book. Many of you have read it. In there, he mentioned about begin with end in mind. It is the second of the 7 habits of highly effective people. So you want to be a highly effective teacher. If your students want to be highly effective learners, then it is so important to have the end goal, the end results, the exit outcome to be in mind. And then the third foundational principle here I have mentioned is high expectation. So raise the bar up. When you raise the bar up, students will rise up to that level. When you raise let me repeat that. When you raise the bar, sometimes it may have to go one step at a time. Sometimes it may have to raise the bar and then try to bring them along. And when you bring them along, don't forget, you have to provide the scaffolding, the support that the students, your learners need. And then there is always that expanded opportunity. That means it promises high level of learning to all students. That is what expanded opportunities means. So these are basically the fundamental or the foundational principles. I want all of you to remember this: clarity of focus, designing down, but you deliver up, and provide that high expectation, and of course, the expanded opportunities. So we are moving on to the next slide. Before that, I want to ask you question. And the question here is, you don't, I'm going to ask you some questions, but you don't have to give me your answers right away. But I want you to keep all these questions behind your mind. Keep this in your mind as I'm going to read them, and you have your own answer. Okay, these are the questions that I want to share with you. Number one, why do we teach? Why are we instructors, teachers, professors who are passionate about our students, passionate about our discipline, passionate about the courses, the subjects that we teach? So why do we teach? And what is the most important thing for us to focus on as teachers to help our students be successful? So what do you like to focus on as teachers? All of us want our students to be successful, right? I don't think that there is any teacher who is innately teacher who doesn't want their students to be successful. We want every student to be successful, not just in our classroom, beyond the classroom. When they graduate, when they go to the workplace, we want our students to be successful. My second question, or the second point here, is how do you plan what to teach? Do you have a lesson plan? And if you have a lesson plan, how do you make that lesson plan? How do you make sure the students are really involved in their own learning, or you are just delivering the lecture and just walking out of your classroom? So how do you plan what to teach? And how do you decide what students need to know and be able to do at the end of the program? Now, I am asking you this question because many a times when we teach, what happens is our focus is on, okay, this is coming for the exam, that is coming for the exam, so just focus on it. Or is that how you decide what your students need to know and be able to do at the end of the program or your course? Or is it something beyond that? Now, how do you make sure that your students are learning what they need to know? What they need to? Are these things easy to understand, and is it easy to measure? When you give students feedback on their work, how does it help them to get better, both in school and in the real world? So what I mean is, okay, you grade their exam, you mark their exam, and then you give back, whether it is midterm or class assignment or quizzes or whatever. So is it just a 7 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 or 100% or 70%, 75%? Are you just giving back this exam or the quiz or paper back? Or how is the feedback going to affect them? And when you think about what school will be like in the future, what do you think needs to change to make sure students and society are both doing well? Now, why did I ask this question? We all agree to the fact that the future is going to change. Changes are already happening. In 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, the education scenario is completely going to change. The workplace is completely going to change. The society is completely going to change. So my question here is, how do you prepare your students? And when you think about what the school will be like in the future, and what is it that needs to change to make sure that your students are successful, and both society and student, if the students are successful, the future citizens are successful, then of course the society will also do well. So these are some questions I asked. I don't want to answer from anyone, but while we are going through this presentation, I want you to ponder on these questions, just to have that in the back of your mind while we are going through. So why did I ask these questions? Because by answering these questions honestly, you will determine your readiness to implement OBE in your classroom. Now, don't forget, this faculty development program is not just another a way of getting together. No, whatever we planned here, as we planned as a seed in all those who listen. We want you to take that into your classroom. It can be one step at a time. It can be a major change if you are more comfortable. But it doesn't matter what. I want you, once you are answering these questions, it will help you determine whether you are ready to implement OBE in your classroom. And we want every individual who is listening to this to put some effort and to make some substantial changes in the way you teach, how you teach, and what you teach, and how you assess. So some of the common questions that come across is this outcome-based education successful? Are there any studies? Now, successful implementation of outcome-based education will result in successful stories. Dear friends, I want to tell you that there are success stories from all over the world. And some of these, the mentions, what I have mentioned here on this slide, is some random stories. I don't have any preference of anything. I just found some good stories, and that is why I'm sharing it. In South Wales, University of South Wales medical program, in Hong Kong, the computer science, in Botswana, in Malaysia, in Indonesia, United Kingdom, United States of America, New Zealand, Malaysia, Australia, South Africa, Canada, Philippines, many African countries, India. There are success stories all over. I know that you have attended this session because you're passionate about teaching and you want your students to succeed. If not, you would not have done this. So we want our students to be successful. So how do we measure these success? How do we measure the success of our students? Is it just passing percentage? Previously, I mentioned about giving back their marks as 7 out of 10 or 80% or 90%. So is it just based on the marks? Is it just passing percentages? Is it on the number of distinctions that comes out of your class? Or is it number of A pluses? How many university ranks are from your college, from your institution, from your program? And what is success for you? And so for that, I really want to bring to you a quote from William G. Spady and Marshall. So Kit J. Marshall and William G. Spady. This quote is from an article that appeared in 1991, and the journal is, excuse me, Educational Leadership. And so what here it says is, success in schools is of limited benefit unless students are equipped to transfer that success to life in a complex, challenging, high-tech future. Now, remember, this is a quote from 1991. It is as relevant or even more relevant now than in 1991. That is my understanding or a take on this. So what is this slide telling us? So the statement suggests that achieving success within school environment, such as good grades, academic achievements, is not enough on its own. As I said earlier about the A pluses, the distinctions, the university ranks, they alone are not good enough. It is not enough on its own. So the quote or these authors are reminding us that students need to be prepared to apply their success and their knowledge to real life situations in a world that is constantly changing, that is technologically advancing every moment. and of course, a world full of challenges. So, in other words, if I'm going to paraphrase it, the ability to adapt, the ability to solve problems and navigate the complexities of modern world is essential for students beyond their academic achievements. In other words, marks alone is not sufficient. In other words, if I am asking, are they ready to be up and running when they hit the road of workplace? If they are successful in their life, then you have achieved your purpose as a teacher. Not being able to help them get 90%. Can they take the knowledge, the skills that they developed in your classroom? Are they able to take it beyond the boundaries of your classroom, your institution, or your city? For the longest period of time, when I was a student in India, many of us thought that success means getting distinction, getting a rank, getting A pluses, and so on. But remember, no, the success is measured whether our students are equipped to transfer whatever they have learned into a life, a complex, challenging, and a high future. Now we cannot shy away as teachers. We cannot shy away from our responsibilities. No one else can prepare our students better than us. Now the question is, how do we prepare our students? So I mentioned about William G. Spady. So for all those who attend any sessions on outcome-based education must know him. William G. Spady, it was Spady who coined the term outcome-based education in 1988. It is not something new, as you can see from the next slide. It is an extension of some previous work. Because of everything that, because of all his contributions to the field, he is known as the father of outcome-based education. He has authored numerous books, articles, papers on outcome-based education and educational reform. So when did he develop these ideas? His ideas about outcome-based education developed in the 70s and 80s as he was working as an assistant executive director for the American Association of School Administrators. So as he was working in that senior leadership position in the Association of School Administrators, then he started looking at the education and the curriculum and everything. When he started working on making changes to education, he was worried about two things. One is what the future would be like for our students. And secondly, how schools were getting them ready for it. So when he looked at the curriculum, and again, I'll in the upcoming slides, you will see that when he looked at the curriculum, when he looked at the way things were happening in the classrooms, he was worried about the future of the students, and he was worried how students are going to be prepared well enough for their future. So he thought that the American educational system was too focused on itself. It is not enough on what students really needed to learn about the future. So when he analyzed what is happening, he realized that people running the system were stuck in old ways of thinking, and they weren't looking ahead to what could be better. So many a times, even in our system, even in our educational system, it doesn't matter which country that is and so on, system is always driven by what was and always had been rather than what could and should be. That is why I really want to congratulate UEM and also Nirmala College because of the visionary leaders. We want our students to be employment ready, socially responsible, and also responsible citizen. So outcome-based education is not something new. I mentioned that it is an extension of some older work, but the idea of outcome-based education had been around for at least 500 years. So it's not a novel idea. And if you look at these two pictures, both emphasize practical learning and skill development, right? The first one is a baker, and the second picture is of a carpenter. So from these pictures, you can understand that the mastery of specific competencies or outcomes is in fact the central focus of outcomes-based education. So even in this, in these slides, or in these pictures, you can see the learning is structured around real-world application and hands-on experience. That is exactly what outcome-based education is. It is about structuring your teaching, structuring the learning of our students around real-world applications and hands-on experience. I want you to keep this in mind. Structuring our teaching and learning around real-world applications and hands-on experience. Now you may ask, okay, if this is not a new idea, so is it exactly the same as what had been in 500 years ago? No. The medieval apprentice program, as you can see in these pictures, was largely informal. It was very unstructured. But outcome-based education, as you know, it is a formalized educational approach with defined learning outcomes, assessment criteria. So this is more structured. And outcome-based education places stronger emphasis on aligning our learning objectives, not just with that course, but broader educational goals and, of course, standards. And it also incorporates systematic assessment, feedback mechanism to monitor our students' progress and, of course, to ensure accountability. So what triggered outcome-based education? So, of course, the movement started from United States of America. William G. Spaddy is an American. So what are some of the major turning points, or what are some of the triggers for the revival of outcome-based education? So something happened in 1957, and then there was evidence of lagging student achievements. Students were not performing up to the standard, and the education model was, stuck with the older type. And then, of course, there was increasing rate of unemployment. So now, if you look at increasing rate of unemployment is an issue even now. So what happened in 1957? If you recall, in 1957, the Soviet Union launched the first satellite, Sputnik, one into the orbit around the Earth. So when the Americans realized that USA had fallen behind in the space race, it sent shockwaves throughout the American society, and this was the one of the triggers for outcome-based education. And then secondly, I mentioned about the evidence of lagging student achievement. So I'll go back to that slide so that it will keep you on track. So evidence of lagging student achievement. So student achievement was lower than other developing countries. And calendar education, defined education model, I will come back to it with another slide. And of course, increasing rate of unemployment, I don't have to say much. So what is this calendar defined education model? As you can see here, it is a framework that is structured around the academic calendar or schedule of a school year. In other words, the curriculum, the instruction, the assessment, the extracurricular activities, if there are any, these are all planned in alignment with the academic calendar. So you have a list of topics. I have chosen this from a mathematics course. Introduction to equation, linear equations and inequalities, quadratic equations, some other equations, systems equations in two unknowns. So list of topics. Now, this is from a course outline, but you can see what is expected of when you prepare a course outline or a syllabus for under outcome-based education. I will show you an example later on. So here all we have is a list of topics, and the instructor comes or the professor comes or the lecturer comes in and covers all these topics and then move on. So calendar education model, it may be an 8-month program or 10 months, depending on the academic year, and the syllabus is completed, and then they move on. And of course, increasing unemployment rate was another issues. I said outcome-based education did not come out of vacuum. It is, in fact, an extension of some previous work. Which are those previous work? It is the work by Ralph Tyler, and you are now very much familiar with Bloom's taxonomy. Sunil Job sir did an excellent job in preparing you for Bloom's taxonomy. So Benjamin Bloom's work, Ralph Taylor's work, James Block's work, Robert Major's work. So William Spaddy, even though he coined the term outcome-based education, it is an extension of some previous work. So much of Spaddy's early thinking about schooling was influenced by all these education reformers. So what I'm saying here is that outcome-based education originated and is grounded in the efforts to address some pedagogical concepts. So the first, I said, Spaddy was the one who coined this term, right? So I want to read a couple of sentences from the articles for you to understand the essence of outcome-based education. Hopefully you can read this. It says the outcome-based paradigm, most educators know what it would make more sense to operate schools on basis of what students can actually do. But the demands of currency and administrative standardization make this deal almost unattainable. So who is William G. Spaddy, helped to develop the key concepts and framework of outcome-based education to address the problem. It is in 1988, this outcome-based education is first theorized. So now let's go to a more formal definition. So outcome-based education means organizing for results. For results, it's very important. Remember that, for results, for outcomes, basing on what we do instructionally on the outcomes that we want to achieve. So we are doing, so outcome-based education is organizing for results, and it is based on the outcomes that we want to achieve, whether in specific parts of the curriculum or in the schooling process as a whole. So organizing programs and instruction around clearly defined outcomes. And to be more clearer, Curriculum and instruction are driven by exit outcomes. That is very important. Hence, I highlighted it. So why am I saying all these things? I want you to have a clear understanding of where outcome-based education comes from and what is its relevance. Unless we know the context, unless we know the background, it is very hard for us to implement. It is very hard for us to have a clear understanding of the need of this educational framework. So in 1988 article of William Spady, he emphasized that educational system and programs are primarily around student custody and administrative convenience. It's 8 months program, 10 months program. So he's saying that, it would be more logical to run schools based on what students are capable of doing rather than having a list of topics to be just covered. Therefore, he formulated the key concepts and the framework of outcome-based education. Now, I have another question for you. Are we preparing our graduates? Or let me reframe, let me backtrack that. So are we preparing graduates who are equipped with the skills to take up the challenges in this fast-paced and competitive world? As an instructor or as a professor, as a teacher in the subject that you are teaching, ask yourself, are you preparing your students with the skills to take up the challenges in this fast-paced and competitive world? To prepare our students for this fast-paced and competitive world, we as instructors, we need to know the changes that is happening around us. Otherwise, we won't be able to prepare them. Now, what I'm saying here is simply showing good grades on paper is no longer the main criteria for getting placements. VC sir specifically mentioned about, getting placement, placing our students with good jobs. An individual needs to possess certain knowledge and skills to survive in the corporate world. So, as you might have noticed, I have bolded the words exit outcomes. In other words, everything that you plan in your classroom, you begin with the end in mind. Start with the end outcome and work backwards to make your dream possible. Now, this is in fact a quote. Begin with the end in mind, start with the end outcome, and work backwards to make your dream possible. This is by Wayne Dyer. He is a motivational speaker and an author. So it applies to us too. The knowledge, the competencies, the qualities that we want our students to be able to demonstrate when they finish school, that must be in our mind when we design our curriculum, when we design our class activities, when we do our assessments and so on. So what they will be able to do after the successful completion of the program, that is what exit outcome means. Now, what is the difference between a traditional education and an outcome-based education? Traditional education, as we all know, it is exam-driven. It is the list of topics to be covered. Memorization is very important. As the senior management leaders mentioned, it emphasizes on rote learning. Rote learning means the first 2 levels of Bloom's taxonomy. So all our questions, all our assignments are mostly focused on, I'm not saying, I'm not making that blanket statement, but generally what is observed is most of our exam questions are based on the first 2 levels. The first 2 levels are so important, but we got to go beyond it. Application and synthesis. So that is way more practical and important when it comes to learning. And then focus on scoring good marks rather than learning the actual skills or gaining any practical knowledge. And as instructors or as teachers, we are always delivering the message. So we just come and we teach, and the students are sitting there as passive listeners or passive learners. Our role, and of course, unemployment is getting worse and worse. So our role is to facilitate learning, to make sure that our students are engaged in the learning, not sitting there as passive listeners, but more engaged. So assessment, there must be assessment is ongoing basis in outcomes education to make sure that they know they're learning the knowledge and the skills that they need to have. And learning is always connected to real life situations. And one awesome quality about outcomes-based education is there is a flexibility. It allows teachers to be innovative and creative in designing and delivering their curriculum. And in outcome-based education, what students learn is way more important than what they are taught. So you can teach everything. You can, give a fantastic lecture for an hour, but did they receive it? What did they learn? That becomes more important in outcomes-based education. So it is not the calendar model that is where you have that syllabus as a list of topics. It is what they learn. And of course, the outcomes are measurable. So you need to know what they are able to do. So syllabus as a list of topics, that is what in the traditional education system happens. I have a list, a syllabus from statistics and also the previous one that I mentioned. So, for those who are familiar with statistics, you can identify this quite easily and relate to it quite easily. Important concepts in probability, classical relative, frequency approach to probability, and so on, random experiment trial, discrete sample space. As you can see, we are just listing a whole lot of topics. Again, in the mathematics also, it is the same. So outcome-based education, this is learner-centered. As I said, students are active learners. They are not passive learners. And they are not, rote learning is not what is expected. Of course, they need to have an understanding of the fundamental concepts, but how to apply those concepts and helping them apply in real life situation is more important. And the focus is on outputs. So as you can see this in the diagram, as you can see, everything is learner-centered. The teaching and learning activities, the assessment task, the learning outcomes, it's all learner-centered. So it all starts with, what do I want my students to learn? And for that, you should know, what do I know about my students? So that helps you prepare the intended learning outcomes. Now, once you have those outcomes, and there is clarity of focus, students know well, instructors, the teachers know that very well, the professors know it very well. And then, how can I facilitate that learning? Again, lecture alone will, a lecture as itself, I'm not saying it is wrong, but lecture does help to some extent, but many a times lecture makes students very passive. So are there any other techniques that you can identify? And then of course the assessment task. How do I know that learning does happen? Again, everything, whether it is learning or whether it is your teaching, the learning activities, the classroom interactions, the assessment task, everything is dependent on the learning outcomes and more specifically, the exit outcomes. I want to show you another image here. Again, as you can see, everything, the curriculum and the content, the instructional delivery, the student assessment, even the student placement and advancement, it's all based on exit outcomes. Of course, student placement and advancement is based on exit outcomes. So exit outcomes defines the curriculum and the content and structure. The instructional delivery, again, the focus will be exit outcomes. And exit outcomes will decide on how our students are evaluated on. And the placement, the advancement, everything also revolves around revolves around exit outcomes. So this is a backward design. So what is the mission and vision of your institution? So the vision and mission of every institution is different. So the exit outcomes that you identify must be in alignment with the vision and mission of your educational institution. And then the program outcomes, the graduate attributes, and then of course outcomes are also based on that. That is why I said at the very beginning, designing backwards, right? It starts from the exit outcomes and comes all the way down to course outcomes, and then the classroom activities, assessments, and so on. So you already know what learning outcomes is, but I really want to just touch on learning outcomes as a refresher. What is learning outcome? Things we can do because of learning. In other words, it is a target to meet. The course outcomes declare the intention of a course, outlining what they will be able to do upon successful completion. I want to give you some examples of some outcomes. Look at this. Again, I got this from the University of Toronto, Canada, from some of their resources. You can go on their website and you can see this as well. It says, by the end of this course, students will have added to their understanding of the complete research process, added to their understanding. Doesn't make much sense to me when I read this outcome. How do you measure adding to the understanding? So as you will appreciate, this is a very vague outcome. By the end of this course, students will have added to their understanding of the complete research process. That is a vague outcome. Learning outcomes, when you prepare or when you get together as a team to prepare, it should use specific language. It should clearly indicate the expectation for student performance. So it can be list the topics, or it can be demonstrate. So all these action verbs must come with learning outcomes. And I can show you an example here. By the end of this course, students will be able to describe, evaluate, formulate, identify, interpret. So when you use all these action verbs, then as I said in my previous slide, these action verbs will clearly indicate the expectation for student performance. Then it becomes much more easy to measure. So it becomes easily measurable. I want to bring another example. By the end of this course, the students will have a deeper appreciation of literature and literary movements in general, added to their understanding of the complete research process. Again, deeper appreciation, adding to their understanding. These are all very vague terms. There is no way that you can measure it. So what do? We use specific language and we clearly indicate the expectations for student performance. So how is it? Identify and describe the major literary movements, perform the close readings of literary texts, evaluate literary work, and so on. So far, what I what I tried to help you here is we wanted to understand the context within which outcome-based education was developed. We wanted to understand the background of outcome-based education, this educational framework, and why is it so important. When you look at all the background, we can easily relate to it, and we can also say, yes, it is needed in my context, in my classroom. And another point I wanted to emphasize is always start with exit outcome. What do you have in mind? What do you want your students to achieve? So every activity, whether it is your teaching, whether it's the learning that is happening in the classroom, the assessments that you prepare for your students, everything must be tied into that. So exit outcome drives every single activity, every single day in your classroom. And finally, I want to always focus on higher order thinking skills in your teaching, in your learning. Most of the time when we do lectures, what it encourages is, it encourages passive learning. So there is no active involvement. You know, to be honest, what we are doing right now, me delivering this lecture, it is again for a, you know, we have, I know that there was, on the first day, I realized that there are 1,800 registrants. So we do have a very large group. So for a very large group, only this type of lecture is possible. But when we have a smaller group, it will be totally different. The way we will structure this is very different. So what we are doing is right now, lecturing, which I am also saying we should not do. Okay, so this is the background that I wanted you to have, so we are all on the same page. Now, as a second part of this session, I want to share with you about my institution and my experiences with outcome-based education. So as Sijin mentioned, I work in Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. This is in Edmonton, Alberta. So our institution is a leader in technical training and applied education. So NAIT students, NAIT, NAIT students earn degrees, their diplomas, certificates, and this focused on career fields of business, IT, engineering, technology, health sciences, culinary arts, and so on. And Northern Alberta Institute of Technology is Canada's leader when it comes to apprenticeship training for skilled trades. So why did I say this? Everything that our institution does is focused on giving students the skills needed to build strong futures. Relatively smaller class sizes, and our focus is on hands-on practical education. And our institution also provides students with skills employer wants. And industry is also a partner in everything that we do. So as of 2023, we have approximately 16,000 students enrolled in credit programs, degree, diploma, and so on. And then 7,000 plus students registered in apprenticeship training. 12,000 plus students enrolled in non-credit courses. And then, of course, there are also additional registrants, 20,000 or so, where we give training for corporates. So, and I just wanted to give you a background of this institution. So we are relevant and we are responsive to the needs of our province or our state. So this, I said, outcome-based education always starts with the vision and mission of our institution. So the vision of our institution is meaningful careers, vibrant communities, globally competitive industries, and transformative polytechnic education. So as you may see later on, the vision, the promises, the values, the course outcomes, the program outcomes, the graduate attributes, everything will be tied into what we have as our vision. So I just want also to read the promises and values. We are leaders in experiential learning, develop student competencies by applying knowledge to practice in real-world challenges, technology focus in teaching and business, staff are industry experts with a passion for their chosen fields. And then we use a polytechnic approach to higher education. And again, polytechnic approaches, I will mention that in a minute. And we are intensively focused on creating a prosperous Alberta. Alberta is our state, our province, and a thriving Albertans. So there are 7 schools, and I work in that first school, J.R. Shaw School of Business. And then we have a construction and building sciences, energy and natural resources, health and life sciences, manufacturing automation, media, information technology, transportation, and so on. These are the 7 schools. So the model of education is polytechnic education. So everything, what we teach and how we teach, it's all on polytechnic. The underlying principle here is the polytechnic education model. So the curriculum that we create, whether it is statistics or business calculus or human resource management or finance or every curriculum, communications, ethics, every curriculum. I'm just randomly throwing in some names, but every single curriculum of ours, every single course of ours is created through consultation with industry. And it reflects the best practice and the emerging best practices. So we teach what is required for the graduates to be successful on day 1 in workplace. And we ensure that they have the skills necessary to build a successful career. So what I meant to say is the curriculum is driven by industry needs. Again, remember what in outcome-based education, the underlying principle is, are our students able to succeed when they are out in the world, looking for jobs? So it is driven by industry needs. So what is required out there? So the curriculum is developed based on the needs of industry, and we anticipate and respond to industry changes. So it is outcomes based. And then you provide the career essential skills. It is created with industry. So it is driven by industry needs. It is created with industry. When I created with industry means we bring industry together with instructors to determine what needs to be taught. And the assessment, the student learning is assessed using tasks they would normally encounter in the workplace. And how do we teach? These are taught by experts. Our instructors have relevant, current, and practical industry experience. So our instructors have subject matter expertise. So in finance program, we hire people who have been working in banks. We hire people who were investment specialists, mortgage specialists, or real estate agents. And with that experience, of course, they must have masters and PhD and so on. That is also very important. So they are subject matter experts. We hire from industry, and our instructors remain current, and they understand the best practice and the emerging best practice. And secondly, those who come from industry, they do have industry experience, but they are also passionate about teaching. So our instructors have teaching expertise. No matter whether you have a master's or a PhD in education, we still have to go through a training program, which is required for all new instructors, new teachers, new faculty members, and they take instructional training courses. So the result is that NATE instructors know their industry, they know how to teach industry relevant curriculum. So we are taught by experts, there is hands-on learning and industry relevant technology and evidence-based practice. So NATE teaches its instructors how to teach so they can translate their industry experience into sound instructional practice. And NATE instructors are professionals who engage in ongoing learning about industry and instructional practice. So they remain leaders in their field. So this is the vision of our program. At the J.R. Shaw School of Business, our dynamic programs are designed to equip you with the skills, knowledge, hands-on experience essential for success in today's rapidly evolving landscape, whether you are aspiring to be a visionary entrepreneur, strategic marketer, financial expert, organizational leader. The J.R. Shaw School of Business offers a diverse range of cutting-edge program tailored to meet your ambition. So in our school, there is Bachelor of Business Administration, there is Bachelor of Technology and Technology Management, and there is diplomas and a certificate. So there are several programs: accounting and analytics, entrepreneurship and innovation, finance, general business studies, hospitality management, human resource management, general management, marketing, supply chain management, technology management, leadership, and so on. So my OBE experience is when we wanted to revise curriculum a few years ago, industry, faculty, students, alumni who graduated, and of course the leadership, the deans and the vice presidents and all the leadership came together and we brainstormed. So the curriculum is developed with industry in mind, with the help of industry. And then during that brainstorming, we identified the concept, the skills that graduates need to know, and the issues that they will face. So based on those brainstorming, the feedbacks that we received from the industry, feedback we received from the students, the alumni, so we identified course outcomes. Sometimes we may have to deconstruct the existing course outcomes to rebuild them. So whether we come up with no new course outcomes or we are deconstructing it and then rebuilding it, everything align teaching and learning and assessment with outcome-based education framework. And the model that we used is 𝐄 and 𝐬𝐧𝐥𝐢𝐧𝐞. Again, there are some short readable books that they have written, so you can probably read it. So in my program, we do offer both a diploma and degree. So let's look at the graduate profile for diploma. Graduates of the finance program are able to apply the foundational knowledge of skills in general business with a practical focus towards financial planning, credit management, investments for career in financial services. So everything that a graduate will do as a financial planner or a credit analyst or an investment specialist. So we provide all the resources and skills and the practice in class. So it is not just memory recall kind of exams. It is more practical, case-based presentation kind of assessments. And the graduates will provide value by demonstrating the ability to work collaboratively and ethically with clients and colleagues in the assessment. So there will always be group work and so on. And then financial diploma graduates will demonstrate effective communication skills. So communication, business communication is a course that everybody got to take. So they have the knowledge and the skills to be effective communicators, and also they get the basic computer application for a business. So what are some of the outcomes? So the program outcomes are analyze financial and non-financial data to guide personal and corporate clients in financial planning. So you all, at least one course will meet this requirement, at least one, at least. So there will be multiple courses, meeting this program outcome. So, but there will be at least one course. And then apply the basic legal framework for business and personal related matters in Albert. Explain to stakeholders investment and credit management. Use relevant emerging technology in financial services. Develop relationship with the clients using interpersonal skills to achieve business objectives and so on. So I if you look at it, I started with the vision and vision of the institution, and then I went to the vision of the program. Then I also, vision of the school. Then I went to the vision of the program, the graduate profile, and then I looked at all the program outcomes. Now I'm going to look at one specific course. So this is a statistics course, a business statistics course, which is mandatory for all programs, whether you are in hospitality or whether you are in entrepreneurship, marketing, or management. You all have to take this course. So what do we cover there? Evaluate business information using descriptive and statistics graphical methods. Solve a probability problem. Estimate population mean. Perform various hypothesis tests. Conduct simple linear regression, and so on. So as you can see, it's not just a list of topics, right? We didn't say mean, median, mode, pie chart, bar chart, histogram, Bayes theorem, relative frequency approach to probability, classical theory, calculate mean, not like that. So here it's more applied, and the students know what is expected of them rather than a listing topics. So specifically, let's say the first one, evaluate business information, then it is further explained. So concepts, the skills, the issues that will face. For example, use graphs and charts to analyze, interpret data types, use Microsoft Excel, calculate central tendencies, calculate variability and interpret the shape, calculate and interpret non-central positions of quantitative data, and so on. Then probability problems. And this again, due to the time constraint, I'm not going through everything. And then formulate test of hypothesis, use Excel. Again, conduct simple linear regression. Again, specifically tells us, assess the assumptions, test the significance of correlation, construct and interpret confidence and prediction interval, and so on. So it is so clear that we do. So that is what we do with the curriculum. And secondly, because of outcome-based education, we constantly have industry connections. Number one, we have what is called Program Advisory Committee. We meet at least once a year, the chair of the program and associate dean, and then one or two instructors. And then the rest will all be the people from industry, various, from banks and investments and insurance and several people. This is just for the finance program. This is just for the finance program. Or we have, people coming from the industry. So similarly, you will have people, program advisory committee for management and marketing, and every program will have program advisory committee where they meet at least once, have that interaction with industry and ask, okay, what is happening? What are the changes that are happening in the industry? How can we prepare our students? This happens every year. And then based on their feedback, we make some changes in the curriculum if needed. And we always bring in guest speakers. These guest speakers are not just professors from other institutions. These are people who work in industry, who knows ins and outs of what the changes are happening. And then info nights. So in the finance program, we offer students different streams: the CFA, the Chartered Financial Analyst stream, Chartered Marketing Technician team, and then Chartered Business Valuation, CBV, and so on. So different streams. So to provide students with enough and sufficient information on what those streams are and which courses to pursue for those streams, we do information nights every semester. We may not do information nights for every single designation. In January, we may do CFP and CFA, and then September, we may do CFP or whatever, depending on the availability and the time and so on. So there is information nights. And Financial Literacy Week. This is something we had been doing for the last 3 years, and this November, it's going to be 4th year. Now, if any of you are interested, you can contact you can contact IPSR, and through them I can even send you the link. We will do that from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So it is in fact 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. your time. So we have short 45 minutes, short hands-on activities which talks about mortgage, budgeting, credit, investment, short courses to prepare students and have the awareness of industry changes and of course financial literacy for themselves, right? But the advantage is that students get to connect with these speakers. So once they establish that connection, maybe they will take them for a coffee or lunch, or maybe invite them to their workplace. So once that connection happens, when there is a position, maybe the student will get that opportunity. Mock interview. This is something that we are really proud of. I know you do have that in many of our institutions in India too. So mock interview this is not campus recruitment. So, but the industry people who are hiring, the people who have higher capacity, they will come and interview students. So it is as if they are really appearing for an interview. So they have to prepare their resume, their CV, send it in advance, and then there will be an expert or a hiring manager sitting next to them, and then to help them develop their interview skills. So after the interview, they will give you the hiring people or the interviewers will give the students some feedback on how they did and what they did and so on. Finance speaker series. This is another opportunity that we do once a month. We bring in people from industry, and they have they talk to students about the changes happening in the industry. Sometimes it is about a specific designation. Sometimes it is about the job that they do, their life as an investment and a chartered financial planner, or certified financial planner, or a chartered analyst. So the people from industry will come and share their experiences on different topics, their job situation, sometimes how to prepare for these exams and so on. Then there are institutional research, alumni services, and so on. So institutional research will send out surveys to graduates and see, how they did and so on. So based on a 2021 survey, this is not just for our program, it's for the entire program. Overall employment is 90% and the seeking employment is 10%. Again, 43% found employment before graduating. 32% secured employment within 3 months. 100% employment was reported in 28 of the 85 programs listed. And the median salary is $50,000. So again, this will give this will provide you some information on how we prepare our students. Again, all the focus is outcome-based education. So I know I had been talking for a long time. So proper implementation. What needs to happen if all those things look so good, so awesome. So what do we do to properly implement outcome-based education in your program? Number one, a shift in the mindset of the leadership, the faculty, students, and staff. Unless the mindset is, if we are stuck with the old mindset, nothing is going to change. There needs to be a complete overall change in our thinking, in our applications, and so on. So shift in the mindset. And then number two, it requires an academic reorganization. So sometimes the academic reorganization is so important to get something going. Paradigm shift in teaching and learning. In assessments, we can't go back to the old way of assessments. And if you want outcome-based education, a successful outcome-based education, you have to strictly adhere to the principles at all levels. The structure must change, the vision must change, the curriculum must change, the assessment must change, the teaching must change, the learning must change. In other words, all levels. We cannot just change the outcome, make some changes in the outcome and rest as usual and say outcome-based education is implemented. No, it doesn't work that way. It will not help you in any way. And successful collaboration. There must be collaboration from students, faculty, staff, leadership. Unless there is successful collaboration and support for each other, implementation will not be successful. And there must always be opportunities for continuous feedback and continuous evaluation. If time permits, I will talk about an opportunity to evaluate and get feedback. So these are some of the things that you have to do to properly implement outcome-based education. Now, are there some challenges? Of course, there are challenges. So what are the challenges? Restructuring of the entire curriculum, education system. It's not an easy thing. For us, when we did that curriculum restructuring and renewal, it all took almost 2 years, right? Meetings every time, bringing in industry, deconstructing the outcomes, creating new outcomes, constant brainstorming. So it is a long process. So you are restructuring the entire curriculum and education system. And two, teachers' attitude must change. Many a times we are comfortable doing our lecture method. So coming out of that lecture method and identifying some non-traditional teaching methods, some cooperative teaching methods, some student-centered teaching methods. Again, we have to, as teachers, we have to change our attitude. And then for our attitude to change, that alone is not enough. The change of attitude alone is not enough. We need to change the skill set, right? Sometimes teachers are not aware of what these alternate teaching methods are. Sometimes teachers may not know what these student-centered teaching strategies are. So you have to, the institution must take the initiative to provide the skill set for teachers. So it may be organizing, professional development opportunities like this and even more. So if you want to develop the skill set, this teaching, this lecture method will not work. You may have to have a very small group, practical oriented kind of sessions that needs to happen. But one thing you got to understand is your workload will increase. Class size will increase. And, be alone is not enough. We need to have the learner characteristics need to change. There is lack of administrative support. Sometimes that is also a challenge that sometimes students doesn't want to do. Sometimes we face the issue when we ask students to do group work, they don't want group work. I remember when I started as a student in Canada, and in 2 of my courses, we had to do group work. I had never done group work before, while teaching in Brunei, I did a little bit group work, but for me to be actually part of, being a student and doing group work, it was really hard for me. So my mindset had to change. I had to learn to be a team player, to understand other other way of thinking, incorporate that to the betterment of our assignments and so on. It's again a complete change of learner characteristic is so important. Now, outcome-based education is not for undergrad or diploma students. Even PhD, this is actually an article from 2021. This appeared in University Affairs. It's a magazine for Canadian Association of University Teachers. In that article, they said we need outcome-based education approach even for doctoral education, because they realized that only 25% of the PhD graduates of any one of these institutions secure permanent teaching position after graduation. So everyone else is going elsewhere. So we have to find the doctoral training that seems to be most relevant for our students. So they said it is needs to be changed. So in short, what I was trying to say is a complete mindset of all of us. If you want a successful implementation, a complete mindset of all of us, the teachers, the institutional leaders, the students, the parents needs to happen. The curriculum needs to change. We have to bring in industry. This is a long process. This is a long process. Making some changes here and there will not give you a successful outcome-based education. I want to see how I'm doing with the time. Sijin, how much more time do I have?
You got 30 minutes more.
20 minutes?
30.
30 minutes, okay. So I'm going to, do you have any questions on, I think, what, we will reserve the questions to the end. So I'm just going on. So this is a 3-legged stool. Curriculum, industry-based, teaching and learning. Again, industry-based. When I say industry-based, I'm talking about the exit outcomes, okay? Curriculum, based on exit outcomes. Teaching and learning, based on exit outcomes. And assessment must also be based on exit outcomes. Sometimes what happens is, we do everything, but assessment does not follow outcome-based education. Most of the time, we go with multiple choice, true, false, short answer, essays, and so on. But in outcome-based education, the expectation is you use some non-traditional assessments. Researchers and educators use the term performance-based or alternative or authentic assessment, and this is changed interchangeably. So what is authentic assessment? Authentic assessment is one that requires application of what students have learned to a new situation and that demands judgment to determine what information and skills are relevant and how they should be used. So this is a formal definition. In other words, authentic assessment tasks replicate real-world challenges and the standards of performance that experts and professionals typically face in the field. So application of what, so authentic assessment, the term authentic assessment was first coined by Grant Wiggins. And what he said is, authentic assessments replicate real-world challenges and standards of performance that experts or professionals typically face in the field. For example, in statistics, if you are expected to do a data analysis, so provide data and let them do the analysis. So that is what authentic assessment is. So it's an effective measure of intellectual achievement or ability because it requires students to demonstrate their deeper understanding, higher order thinking, and complex problem solving through the performance of exemplary tasks. Now, when they demonstrate their deeper understanding of the topics that you covered in class, they employ higher order thinking, and they are able to do complex problem solving, then you can be assured that they will be successful in outside the boundaries of our classroom. So authentic assessment must be realistic. It requires judgment and innovation. It asks the student to do the subject. It replicates or simulates the workplace. It assesses the student's ability to effectively and efficiently use the knowledge and skills to solve a complex task and allow appropriate opportunities to rehearse, practice, consult resources, and so on. Now, I can give you some examples. Again, authentic assessment itself, I'm just giving you some, some general overview. I know this alone is not enough, but I really want to plant some seeds in your mind, and then you can further study about it, or further provide some seminars on this and so on. So what are some of the examples of authentic assessment? So in business, an example will be develop a business or marketing or sales plan for an imaginary company in a student's area of interest. So everything that they learned in that course is applied, and then we'll see how students are successful. So provide a case study of a patient and ask students to assess and create a plan of care. That is for nursing. And, see, we can similarly come up with a lot of examples here. So what I'm, with this example, what I was trying to say is it allows students appropriate opportunity to rehearse, practice, consult resources, and get feedback and refine performances and products. So what are the guidelines for constructing alternate assessment? Identify the outcome that you want to assess. Describe how you want the learners to demonstrate using a real-world activity. And then I have some examples. Again, some of them you are already using it. I know that many of you are already using it, but just want to bring into your attention that create the task or assignment that students feel they can relate to and can apply in their lives. And then, of course, create a rubric for the evaluation. So some of the examples will be portfolios, case studies, journals, presentation, research report, oral interviews, exhibition, creating a flyer. If you are very creative, you can ask your students to compose a song. Debating is another opportunity. Reflection papers, creating podcast if you are, into that. Data analysis project, creating concept maps. Concept maps, they can identify all the different the concepts that they have learned and put together to see how one concept is related to the other. So these are some of the examples. And so when it comes to authentic assessments, it is like sky is the limit. Reflect on the concepts. For example, reflect on the concepts like supply and demand, elasticity, marketing structure, and discuss its relevance to real world situation. This is something that you could use for economics. Analyze current events and economic phenomena, apply economic theories to explain the implication. You can give the current events, or you can direct them to a specific phenomena that is happening now, and then economic phenomena, and then ask them to apply the economic theories that you have discussed in class. Or choose a case or an article related to government policy, international trade agreement, and ask students to evaluate the outcomes, explain with respect to the principles and theories. So what I'm saying is, instead of asking them to define supply and demand, or providing a little graph and seeing how supply and demand works, or asking them to define elasticity or market structures. So they are applying everything that they learned using these relevant real world situation. This is something that we used in ethics. This is from one of my courses when I used to teach ethics. Consider a compromising situation during your time in school or any level or at work where you had to make a difficult moral decision. Reflect on your thoughts and actions at that time. How did you behave? Why did you act the way you did? Reflect on your thoughts and course of action. Why do you think you took that course of action? Incorporate all that you have learned from chapter 1 of the text. Use proper or appropriate terminology from chapter 1. Telling a story is not the point of this exercise, but trying your story and moral growth to tying your story and moral growth to chapter 1 concepts is the exercise. And so as you can see, they have, they not only they need to know the concepts and theories that we discussed in chapter 1, now they have to apply that to a real life situation of their own, whatever, a compromising situation that they had to face in their life, whatever that is, right? So sometimes, students will open up, and some of the things that they had to face, they will mention. And then they get the opportunity to think through and tie it to the concept. So they have to use that, the terminology, moral, the ethics, the values, all those terms that they learned in chapter 1 will be applied. And also all the theories that they learned, the moral development theory from Kohlberg, or the care theory. So they have to apply those things in chapter 1. So in this assignment, everything that they have learned in chapter 1. So and then in addition, ground your essay on diagram, expounding on each section of the flow chart, which should cover all other concepts in chapter 1. So there is no way for them to escape anything. Introduce the moral development theory. Which moral development theory will fit you, or do you think you follow? Your opinion alone is not the point of this exercise. Analysis of your action based on chapter 1 concepts. So So again, developing an assignment like this requires a lot of work from instructors' part too. It is not that easy. Rather than saying, describe Kohlberg's moral development theory. So this is quite different from asking them to describe Kohlberg's theory. So they have to apply it. Example from statistics, create a hypothetical survey. So in this survey questionnaire, they have to use 3 qualitative variables, 3 quantitative variables. So they are coming up with their own creativity to create their survey. And then they provide the responses also. And so we give further more instructions. So the first variable must be a binary variable. And the second variable must be an ordinal variable with 3 assigned numeric codes. The third variable must be, again, a nominal variable with 3 distinct values. And then the fourth variable is a discrete variable, and the fifth and sixth are continuous. So rather than asking them to define a discrete variable or a continuous variable or giving an example and say, well, which is discrete or continuous, now they have to sit and they have to create a questionnaire, and then with all these criteria. And then they also have to fill in, to create this hypothetical data. Whole numbers should be whole number, no decimals, no fraction, and so on. So this is some examples from authentic assessment. It aligns with course outcomes. It is indicative of real world job situation. Another definition, the authentic assessments involve giving students opportunities to demonstrate their abilities in a real world context. Ideally, student performance is not measured by the ability to memorize or recite terms and definitions, but on the ability to use repertories of disciplinary tools. So to analyze and solve a realistic problem they might face as practitioners in the field. So over and over, what I'm trying to emphasize is giving students the opportunities to demonstrate their abilities in a real world context. That must be the focus of our teaching and learning. So, in the implementation part, I mentioned about collecting feedbacks because continuous improvement is something that is very important in outcome-based education. So how do we know that our teaching this semester was effective? So how do you ensure that the goals of outcome-based education are met? So scholarship of teaching and learning, SOTL, is a scholarly approach to understanding and improving teaching practices. So a systematic study of teaching and learning processes. It is often conducted by faculty members within higher education institutions. So you decide on a topic for your classroom and you see how it worked. So it invites professionals to examine their own classroom practice and record their successes and failures. And then, of course, you share the experience with others so that others will also get an opportunity to reflect on your findings and build their teaching and learning process as well. So the objective of SOTL is to improve student learning, to find better and more engaging ways to teach, to conduct scholarly examination of what takes place inside the classroom, asking questions, collecting evidence on effectiveness, and to make the results of this analysis available so that other people are readily available. I strongly encourage you folks to explore this. Some examples of SOTL research: let us play, improved instruction through re-experiencing learning using tabletop games, impact of immediate feedback assessment technique on course evaluation, problem-solving skill, threshold concepts in the development of problem-solving skills, managing active learning processes in the large first-year physics class. As you can see from the title, all these researchers, what they did is whatever happened in their classroom, they are just studying further, deep into it. They want to see the effectiveness of what happened in their classroom. There are a lot of journals that you can rely on. Canadian Journal of Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, Canadian Journal of Higher Education, Change, the Magazine of Higher Learning, Interdisciplinary Journal of Teaching and Learning, International Journal of Teaching and Learning in Higher Education, Journal of Classroom Interaction, Journal of College Teaching and Learning. These are some of the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning journals. If you are interested, just take a look at it. And if you're teaching physics, see what sort of topics are covered in physics. If you're teaching management, see what sort of topics are covered under the management. You may find some articles which is relevant to you, your classroom. You can even replicate that, right? So that is another opportunity to see how effective your teaching is and how effective the learning is in your classroom. So to summarize my presentation, I really want to emphasize this. Education is not filling of a pail. It is lighting of a fire. So with that, I want to thank you all for your active listening and your patience. This was a long presentation, but you were quite patient enough. And we can take a few questions. I may not have the answer for all of your questions. Just like you, I'm also learning these topics. So, but if I know, I'll be more than happy to answer some questions. So once again, thank you very much. And I am going to stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas Verghese, for the wonderful, informative session. Now, if any of you have any questions to Dr. Thomas Verghese, you can post it in the chat, and so we'll answer your question.
Looks like there are no questions, so that is also good. If you have no questions, there is, there are two options, right? I might have been extremely good in my presentation, or I would have been extremely poor in my presentation, so it was not clear at all. Anyway, thank you, everyone.
There are some questions popping up now. Yeah.
Okay. Let me see whether I can bring up the chat.
Yeah.
I may not be able to answer all, but let us see. Okay, please provide. Okay, that's about the feedback. Sorry. Okay, Sumo George, in which year does a 4-year graduate enter the practical lab? I don't quite understand that question. For us, if it is industry-related courses, we start from probably the second semester of first year. So we do it. We start it quite early so that they will have the practice. Are the students' problems same there? They are in India. That's a very good question. Are the students' problems same? To some extent, it is not. The reason being, in India, the students are, we ask, right? We ask our children to go, okay, you go take engineering, you go to medical school, you go and do physiotherapy, you go and do, pharmacy. So many a times what happens is students themselves are not very keen, but we parents think that, okay, if you go pharmacy, then there is a high chance of getting a job. Or if you go physiotherapy or medical school or engineering or computer science, you are seeing the opportunities and sending. Sometimes students are not even interested. And I can talk about my personal experience. I was never interested to go in the mathematics or statistics field. I was more an sociology, political science, literature kind of person. That is my mindset. But my parents decided that I must go for mathematics. So we then we had, and finally we settled in statistics, and I took statistics. I'm glad that I took statistics. I have a job now and so on. But what I'm saying is, okay, coming back to Shubhanki's question on are the students' problems the same there? Here, most of the students take those programs out of their interest. So the student problems are very, very limited. Now, I also have to say, there is a lot more international students, especially from India, in Canadian institutions. Those students are creating problems. Those students are cheating. Those students are creating challenges. I know this is going live, so my apologies if I have hurt anyone. But because you asked, the problems are there. Yes, there are some issues, but innately the Canadian students, as such, they join programs out of their interest. But other than that, it is probably much better if it is just Canadian students. Okay. Oh, thank you for your kind words, Vajjala madam. Sumot George, I saw you said another question. I have a question in Canada, and then that question did not get complete. Manjusha's question, how to begin OBE-based evaluation? Would it be easier to introduce it in assignments or at the end term exam? Oh, that's a wonderful question. Very, very good question. Thank you, Manjusha, for that question. So in outcome-based education, it's constant evaluation. It's not the end term exam. All the assignments must prepare them to do that end term exam. So every assignment, every discussion, it all will channel them towards the final exam. So it needs to be incorporated in your teaching, in your questioning techniques, in the assessments and so on. Okay, all right then. Thank you very, very much for your time. Thank you very much for your attendance. Hopefully this had been some help to you. If you further have any questions, please send it to IPSR, and then they can reach out to me. And if I know the answer, I can certainly help you with that. Okay, bye for now.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for taking those questions. Yeah, I think you have taken all the questions as well. Please note, everybody, tomorrow we don't have a session. The next session will be on Monday. Monday, our topic will be on underlying threats of OBE, generative AI in teaching, which is going to be taken by Dr. Suresh Nambudiri. Please join in on time at 7 p.m. on Monday. Tomorrow we don't have a session. All right, everybody. Thank you all for attending this session. Hope you all enjoyed it. We will see you again on Monday. Have a pleasant evening and a wonderful weekend. Thank you, everyone.